What's up everybody, Mike Lezarecki here, and today I'm talking to you guys about what I think is the most underrated camera in 2020 for YouTube. Let's do this. So it's 2020, you've probably been locked in your house for the past few months because of the COVID thing, and you've decided that you want to start a YouTube channel as a new hobby. So you're probably looking to try to figure out what the best camera is for your money to be able to actually kind of get this thing started and have it look pretty decent. So in my opinion, the most underrated camera on the market here in 2020 is the one that's filming this video right now. That's the Canon EOS M50. Now I know what you're thinking, all the hype about the full frame mirrorless cameras and how you gotta be full frame 4K, but hold on, don't worry about all those crazy specs and the rumors and the things that everybody says you gotta have. I'm talking about this camera from the standpoint of a beginner on YouTube who wants something that's reliable, that can offer them a good image and isn't too fiddly for them to actually sit down and start recording. The Canon EOS M50 is actually perfect for this. Let's talk about some of the things that this camera does offer that will allow you to get an excellent experience out of this while you're trying to create some videos for yourself. Now, when you're shooting at full HD 1080p, you're able to utilize dual pixel autofocus, which is really very good. It makes it so that you can set it into face priority mode, point the camera at your subject or yourself, and it will track your face, keep you in focus, no matter if you get close or if you stay a little further away, you're going to be able to be in focus and your video will look better because you remain in focus rather than some people out there who are out of focus on YouTube, and that never looks good, right? Aside from the autofocus, the other thing I just mentioned is the fact that this camera is very small. So instead of having to carry around a full frame camera, which is obviously going to be a little bit bigger just simply because of the electronics inside of it, this is a very compact camera. It's only slightly larger than your standard point and shoot camera, so it's very convenient to walk around with. Now this camera also offers 4K video. I don't generally use it because the dual pixel autofocus is not available in 4K. However, if you are looking for 4K, this camera does pack 4K into that little bundle. Now, since this is a Canon camera, it is entirely possible to adapt higher end Canon EF lenses onto this camera body and have them work as though it's a native lens. Now, you will have to buy an adapter for that, but it is possible, which does expand the number of lens choices that are out there for you. Add to that the fact that EF lenses are everywhere and you can usually get them used for a pretty good price. There's no reason not to get the adapter and expand the possibilities. Other excellent features that come built into this camera, it has a plug for an external microphone, which is always recommended because you can always get better audio off of an external microphone. It also offers a fully articulating flip-out screen, which allows you to be able to check the image and see yourself framed on the camera as you're filming if you're doing things like this for YouTube. Another cool feature that this camera offers is the ability to film in 60 frames a second at full HD. This allows you to film in slow motion. So what'll happen is you film it at 60 frames a second, and when you take it into your editing software later, you can conform it to a 24 frames a second timeline. Then you end up with a little over 2 times slow motion right there, built right into this camera. Now, for those of you out there that are a little bit more advanced users, there are still ways to customize this camera so it's a little bit more of a serious filmmaking tool. Out of the box, it just comes with standard picture profiles, no log settings or anything like that for video. However, if you download and install Technicolor CineStyle as a color profile on this camera, you are able to maximize the dynamic range that you can pull out of this little sensor. Now, just like anything else, there is no perfect camera. There's always going to be drawbacks with every product that's on the market. And the drawbacks with this are there, but kind of minimal. Some people might look at the sensor size as a drawback. It's not a full frame sensor. It's an APS-C size sensor. Now, one upside to that is that APS-C is very similar to what's called Super 35. Super 35 sensors are and have been pretty standard in the cinema business for a long time. So you're actually going to get a fairly similar field of view to what you would on a pretty big budget cinema camera. So not necessarily that big of a drawback. Some people look at it as a drawback because with an APS-C size sensor, you don't get quite as shallow a depth of field if you're trying to knock out the background, and it's not usually quite as good in low light. However, it's still a really nice looking image, and you know, it's not that big of a handoff. Also, the cropping on the 4K image. Although this camera does offer 4K video, it does heavily crop the image, making it so that you don't have as wide a field of view. Now, this is kind of a similar complaint to the last one with the sensor, but what happens here is electronically it crops in on the sensor instead of doing it just by having a smaller sensor. So now you've got a crop on top of a bigger crop, and then you don't have quite as much flexibility with the image. So it does record 4K, which is nice. However, it pushes in quite a bit. So you'll have to push your camera much further away from yourself, or step further away from your subject if you're filming someone else or trying to get a wide landscape scene. That's going to be more difficult in 4K. Another potential drawback of this camera is that it is part of the EOS M system, and that is an M mount camera lens. Now, there's a pretty limited selection of lenses for that mount specifically. As I mentioned earlier, you can adapt this camera to Canon's EF glass. However, this system is not being updated at the pace that other mirrorless systems are, and there may come a time where Canon decides to discontinue this specific lens mount. On the other hand, if they do discontinue it, that may make the pricing on the lenses that are available for this camera even less. So, might be a win, might be a loss. You make the call. And then also it does have a little bit of a soft image. It's not the sharpest sensor on the market. Personally, I think the video files look just fine, maybe a little bit soft, but you can always add some sharpening in post. But the colors are pleasing, and the video coming off of this camera does look better than something like a cell phone. Now, overall, I really do think that this camera is a great value, especially if you take into consideration that you can buy the body and a pretty versatile kit lens for only $499. You've got yourself a really great kit there that's going to be able to serve you very well in the YouTube space for quite a while. All right, guys, so those are my thoughts on the Canon EOS M50. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're looking to pick up one of these Canon M50s for yourself, I left a link in the description below, so go ahead and check that out. Hit that thumbs up button if you want to see more content on my channel like this, and consider subscribing, and I will see you guys next week. Later.